The Power Shift, a story of respect and redemption, a routine visit to the bank turned into a test of patience and dignity. For Raven Carter, it was supposed to be a simple afternoon errand. She had prepared everything meticulously, as she always did, because she understood that being a black woman in spaces like this often meant needing to be twice as prepared, twice as polite, and twice as patient. But no amount of preparation could have braced her for what was about to unfold. The glass doors of Sterling National Bank swung open with barely a sound as Raven stepped inside. The building was pristine. White marble floors gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights. A scent of brewed coffee floated from the self-serve station in the corner. It was cold in there, both in temperature and atmosphere. Every line, every chair, every inch of the place was perfectly placed, almost sterile in its perfection. Raven checked the time. 2:45 p.m. She had a little over an hour before the branch closed. More than enough time to speak with someone about her account. She made her way to the reception desk, the click of her heels sharp against the floor. A young woman sat there, blonde hair neatly pinned back, wearing a navy blazer with the bank's crest embroidered in silver on the pocket. "Good afternoon," Raven greeted with a polite smile. "I need to speak with a manager about my account. It's a time-sensitive matter." The receptionist glanced up, her pale blue eyes flicking over Raven for less than a second before returning to her computer screen. "Take a seat," she replied flatly. "Someone will be with you shortly." It wasn't the kind of greeting Raven had seen offered to others before her, but she let it slide. She'd spent her entire career learning to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the woman was busy. Maybe she was having a rough day. Maybe Raven was reading too much into it. She took a seat in one of the low-backed leather chairs in the waiting area. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Raven glanced around. A man wearing a gray suit and an expensive watch arrived. The receptionist greeted him warmly, even rising slightly from her chair as he approached. Within moments, Robert McAllister, the branch manager, emerged from his office and shook the man's hand. Smiles, laughter, immediate attention. Raven's spine stiffened, but she forced herself to stay seated. Half an hour. Then 40 minutes. Another customer entered, a woman in a sleek, fitted dress carrying a designer handbag. The receptionist was all smiles again. The woman was ushered in within 2 minutes. And Robert McAllister himself? He practically bounded out to greet her. Raven rose from her seat, crossing back to the reception desk. "Excuse me," she said, her tone measured. "I've been waiting almost 45 minutes. I was told I'd be seen shortly, but I keep watching customers who just arrived be taken back ahead of me." The receptionist didn't even bother to hide her sigh. "The manager is busy," she said. "You'll have to wait your turn. My turn should have come a long time ago." A tight smile. "Would you like me to schedule an appointment for another day?" Raven took a slow breath through her nose. No, she would not be pushed off. "No," she said. "I'd like to speak to the manager now, as I've seen others do this afternoon." The receptionist said nothing more. She simply returned to her screen, her fingers tapping out something meaningless, pretending Raven didn't exist. It was as if the woman wanted her to disappear, as if that would make the problem go away. Across the room, Robert McAllister stepped out of his office again. Clipboard in hand, his eyes scanned the lobby and slid right past Raven. He focused instead on a couple who had just entered, middle-aged, white, with matching wedding rings. His smile widened. "Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, welcome back. Let me take care of you." Raven's stomach sank. She clenched her fists in her lap as she watched McAllister personally escort them back to his office. She had done everything right. Patient, polite, professional. And yet, here she was, invisible. The receptionist leaned forward again, voice syrupy sweet. "We're much less busy in the mornings, you know." Raven's eyes stung, but she refused to blink. She opened her mouth, about to let loose a calm but cutting response, when the doors to Sterling National Bank swung open once more. 4 people strode in. Suits perfectly tailored, expressions focused. They moved like a current through the room, an undeniable force. Their presence shifted the energy immediately. Even the receptionist straightened, her casual indifference evaporating in an instant. A tea there center was a tall man with salt and pepper hair and an air of quiet authority. His dark gray suit fit like it had been made for him, and the way he surveyed the lobby made it clear that he was not here for a loan application. Then his eyes found Raven, and to her shock, his expression softened with familiarity. "Raven Carter," he said, his voice rich and clear. "I was hoping I'd see you today." Every conversation in the room stopped. Every head turned toward her. Even Robert McAllister froze in his tracks. Before she could even register what was happening, the group was moving toward her. The man extended his hand, his smile genuine. "It's been too long," he said warmly. Raven stood, accepting his handshake. She searched his face, trying to place him. She'd met many high-level executives in her career as a consultant, but in this moment, she was still reeling from the blatant disrespect she'd endured for the last hour. The others behind him, two men and a woman, all dressed in tailored power suits, watched the room with subtle scrutiny. Robert McAllister stepped forward, his fake smile plastered on. "Mr. Alston," he greeted, offering his hand. "Pleasure to see you again." Alston. Raven suddenly knew who he was. Damon Alston, senior board member of Sterling National's regional division. A man with the power to promote or terminate entire branches with a signature. Alston gave McAllister a nod, but turned immediately back to Raven. "I didn't realize you banked here," he said casually. "How's the service been?" The question seemed innocent, but the weight beneath it was undeniable. Raven met his gaze. "I've been waiting to speak with the manager for nearly an hour," she said calmly, while I watched others receive immediate service. A hush fell over the lobby. McAllister's jaw tightened before he forced out a laugh. "Miss Carter, I apologize if there was any delay. We've been unusually busy today." Damon Alston said nothing at first. Then he turned back to McAllister, his eyes cold and sharp. "Is that your standard practice? Making long-standing clients wait while you tend to others?" McAllister swallowed. "I wasn't aware of the situation." "Hard to believe," Alston said flatly. The woman standing beside him stepped forward, flipping open a tablet. "This aligns with the discrepancies we've been reviewing," she said. "Customer prioritization based on subjective bias." McAllister paled. Damon Alston sighed. "We were already reviewing your leadership, Robert. Today confirms what we've suspected." McAllister's composure cracked. "This is a misunderstanding." "No," Alston interrupted. "It's a pattern, and it ends today." The silence was deafening. Raven could feel eyes on her from every corner of the lobby. Customers, tellers, receptionists, they all knew something significant had just happened. Alston turned to Raven again. "If you're still interested, we'd be honored to assist you directly." For the first time that day, Raven allowed herself a small smile. "I'd appreciate that." They led her to a private office, leaving McAllister and his receptionist behind in the lobby, both of them stiff with shock. Inside, the space was sleek and modern. Raven sat at a polished table while Alston and his team took seats around her. "I'm sorry you had to experience that," said the woman with the tablet. "Unfortunately, you're not the first." Raven nodded. "But I want to be the last." Alston smiled faintly. "That's why we're here." They asked her to document her experience. She hesitated at first. She didn't need revenge. But if she stayed quiet, nothing would change. So she wrote it all down. Every dismissive glance, every delay, every word from the receptionist and McAllister. And the sudden shift the moment Alston recognized her. When she finished, Alston scanned her statement. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then something unexpected happened. The woman, her nameplate read Julia Thompson, leaned forward. "Have you ever considered a career in banking?" Raven blinked. "Finance? Not really. We're restructuring management," Alston explained. "And we're looking for people who value integrity. You have experience in operations and consulting. We think you'd be a good fit." Raven took a moment. She hadn't walked into Sterling National looking for a job. But now, sitting there, she realized something had shifted inside her. "I'll consider it," she said as she left the bank. The tension was still thick in the lobby. McAllister was nowhere to be seen. The receptionist avoided her gaze. Raven stepped out into the sunlight. The air felt warmer, the weight on her chest lighter. For years, she had swallowed these moments, told herself it was just how things were. But not today. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Talia. How'd it go? Raven smiled to herself that it's a long story. Call you later. As she walked to her car, she realized that the balance of power in that room had shifted. Not because of who she knew, but because of who she chose to be. And maybe, just maybe, that was only the beginning.